So Naomi, you and I have each other for a long time.
Yes, like I said, elementary school.
So I met you right when Comerica acquired Imperial Bank. And I was headed by Milk Caps, who was also your boss. And a
Loved
funny
him.
thing, when I interviewed for that job, I was blonde.
That's true.
And when I started the job 2 weeks later, I was a brunette. And everyone was completely confused. Funny story. Anyway, we became friends. We both worked late. Sometimes we worked on Saturdays. And back then, I sort of had this rule that I couldn't be friends with somebody I work with. I mean, yes, you can be friends with the people you work with, but not become like best friends. Because I thought, I'm trying to grow my career, I'm serious, and, blah, blah, blah. But it ends up that we went out for a drink one night, and I had a ton of fun. And then we started going out on the weekends.
Yes.
And we had a ton of fun. And then you became my best friend, and you were the maid of honor in my wedding. And our friendship has remained all these years later. We worked together for I think about 9 years, and then you left America. And you went off and did something really super fun in Hollywood.
Yes, crazy.
And you were going to Dubai a lot. And I was really excited because I really want to go to Dubai. I wanted to check it out, but I never went. And then you came back. And I remember you started your own business.
Golden Sand Entertainment.
Yeah. Yep. And then it kind of came back to payments. And we did some entrepreneurial things in payments. Then went to work also with some ISOs, IT verticals, being one of them. What are some of the
iPayments, i3 verticals, TMS. First Pay Solutions was one out of New York. It was the largest Asian first data ISO. Okay. They did $5 billion a year, and he had grown the Asian market. He had Koreans and Chinese, and he was in New York. He was in the finance section of New York, Wall Street. And he used to fly me out there. I used to stay out there for a week, and he really wanted to start going and getting American ISOs and agents. That was his goal. So I introduced him to a company called Easy Pay. And again, back then I was doing consulting, and I would come into an ISO and see kind of the goals and objectives. What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And how can we grow this? And I brought him a company that he ended up buying, which was online ordering back in the days. That was really interesting. First Data ended up buying him. But yeah,
And here you are now. So you're an NMI now. But tell us how you got started in this industry.
So I knew nothing about payments. Fresh out of college, I've always been in sales. I've always been a salesperson, believe it or not.
I believe it.
And I was selling copiers for Sharp copiers, competing with Xerox. And I did that for 5 years, and it was all male dominated. And I worked out of West LA, and I would cold call all the buildings. And I would win all the contests, and I would always upsell them. If they had a little copier, I would sell them the big machines. I don't know, I just upsell everyone. It was great. And back then, when I started that, it was straight commission. And
I remember you telling me these stories, and when we worked together, I was in operations, you were running sales, and you would tell me these stories about walking into a building and literally getting, cold calling, literally getting kicked out.
The thing I have to say about copier sales, you're treated worse, because they get so many people coming in the office, you get treated worse than a car salesman. The reputation is horrible. So what I started doing was I would go on lunchtime, and hit the buildings because whoever was taking over the reception was really nice. And I'd always stop, oh my God, what a great outfit. Where did you get that dress? And I'd become friends with the whoever was filling in for the receptionist, and they'd give me the card and they'd tell me. The other thing I started doing, I would go cold calling at 5 o'clock. And I'd be, hello, hello, nobody would be there. And I would get the decision maker. And I closed more business. They would walk me in and I'd go, hello, hello, and they're like, come on in, tell me what you're doing. And it was like the president of the company. And so I would cold call at 5 o'clock, so nobody was there, and the decision maker were there, or at lunchtime. Because yeah, I got kicked out, I got escorted out of a lot of buildings. So, you know, it really taught me sales.
So how did copiers wade into payments?
I did that for 5 years, and you know, they say you can stay in selling copiers for 1 year. It's crazy, but I stayed 5 years. And so the reason I changed companies is my boyfriend at the time worked for the company. He was one of our sales managers in the copier company, and I got engaged. He was my ex-boyfriend, and I got engaged, and my husband said, you can't work with your ex-boyfriend if we're going to get married. This is Madison's dad. So I had a headhunter, and he said, why don't you go to my headhunter? She got me a great job, and so he got me in front of this lady, Susie. She helped me put together my resume. She sent me out, and she sent me to an interview with a company called Brown Forman. And Brown Forman they owned Jack Daniels, Southern Comfort. They've been in the hospitality industry, and they decided to get into credit card processing for all the restaurants that they were already in, you know, they were selling liquor to. So I went on interviews with them, and it so happened that the manager for the LA area had sold Minolta copiers, and when 5 years you're hired, you know. So, and I remember he took me cold calling, and all we did was call on restaurants, and it was a really great industry to call on. Back then, a lot of restaurants still had the knuckle busters, and that's when they had the split dial. So that's what we were really pitching, but Brown Forman had a special printer that was a slip printer, so we would do the logo of the restaurant. We would offer them that, so that was our selling point. And so I learned to go, like with copiers, I used to go during lunch. There I used to go after, you know, around 10 o'clock, or I'd go after lunch. They'd sit me down, they'd get me a drink. I mean, they were so nice, and I mean, I just loved it. And then we got bought by a company called Nabanco. And Nabanco had a relationship with Great Western Bank back in the day. I don't know, I'm dating myself again. And when they bought us with the employees, and then we started calling on banks, and that's when I got into the banking side of the business and selling to retail, selling merchant services to retails as well. And then shortly after that, Rick Garcia, which was Nabanco, sold Nabanco to First Data. And again, they hired us as employees. So that's why I was saying, when my daughter, I used to show her, I had a Brown Forman card, I had a Nabanco card, I had a First Data. At that point, it was First Data through Chase. And then what they did, I think they thought we were more quality people because we were salary employees and so forth. They had our division of the Brown Forman people, or the Nabanco people, call on the middle market banks at Wells Fargo. So I was working with middle market, the lenders. We were doing chain restaurants, very large. My quota was 10 million a month in processing. And we were doing it every day, so I called on the banks. So I really understood the banks and the bankers and how they're so, you know, careful with their accounts and how to handhold them. But one of the things I learned really quickly with Wells Fargo, they were kind of, you know, First Data was another company, and giving us referrals, or like, what if you mess something up, it hurts our relationship. And what I learned really quickly was networking. And what I would do was, a lot of times I would sign up someone directly that wasn't with Wells Fargo, and I'd say, who's your bank? And I started referring business, and soon I became like the top, you know, I was getting more referrals from Wells Fargo because I was, you know, as a salesperson, you want to take care of people who take care of you. So networking became huge. One thing we also created was a networking group. So we had Amex Rep, Dinerware back then, Diners Club. We had Amy, which I hired later. We had diners. We had just people that called on restaurants, and we'd meet for lunch once a week, and we'd share new restaurants that were opening up, and we'd introduce each other to these restaurants. So for me, early on, I realized in the payment side, not really with the copiers, but in the payment side of the business, I realized that networking was the way to do it. You could work smart, you could work harder, but you could work smarter by really working with people that were calling on the same industry and the same type of businesses that would refer business to you.
Subscribe and follow Girls Just Want to Have Fun for the rest of this story and others like it.